Thank you for that introduction, Don, and also thanks to Joe for the kind invitation back here this year. It's good to be back in Glenties, I can say that. It's a great pleasure actually to lead off on this discussion on, as Don has said, our reform of the education system. Is that needed? Is innovation needed? But before I start, I wanted to just make a couple of declarations to you. I'm going to focus my commentary mainly around the second level system, and I know Hugh and others will talk about third level and so on. And I have a passion and I have a vested interest in the success of our second level system in this country for a couple of reasons that I thought I would share with you up front. First of all, end to end, I'm a product of the system myself. It has served me very, very well throughout my working career, and still to this day, working in HP, I draw on the experience and the learnings that I made in the system. So that's the first thing to say. The second thing is I'm a parent. I have 3 young children who are making their way through the system currently at various stages, and obviously, like any other parent, I absolutely want the best for them going forward. And then last and certainly not least, I'm an employer. And in my travels around the world and in the work that I do in Ireland, I can see very clearly that the cornerstone of economic revival in any nation is education, education, education. There's no question about that. I'm absolutely convinced personally that one of the greatest natural resources that this country can export onto the world stage is trained and highly educated people. And equally, as I know through my own experience with HP, one of the pivotal reasons why companies like my own still come and invest and build jobs in this country is because of our highly educated workforce. There is no question about that. So my vision for the second level system is a system that will mirror a modern Ireland and that will define us as a nation. And it will do that, as I'll set out to you this afternoon, by marrying together a modern curriculum, a modern learning environment, and then the best use of one of the greatest resources that we have in this state, which is a highly trained, well-equipped teaching fraternity who will drive results in a second level system. So I think that the system itself is absolutely, I'm very optimistic and very upbeat about this education system. I think it's a time of great opportunity. And I think for any minister, it would be a very, very great lasting legacy for them to really take this system on and reform it. If that minister accidentally came from the best county in the state, I wouldn't argue with that either. I would support it fully. So my proposition this afternoon really revolves around 3 points. First of all, why we should make education a priority, and my thesis will be that we have to make it a priority because it is the route to job creation. So that will be the first area I'll talk about in my reform strategy. The second thing is, having decided that it's a priority, that we actually stand back as parents, as industrialists, as government, and we decide what we're looking for from the system. And we look at it, bearing in mind, as has already been alluded to, that children that are going in to start the cycle in 6 or 8 weeks' time, there's 15 or 20 years that they will come through the system end to end. And obviously the requirements that are down the line will have changed again and again and again before they actually come out of the system. And finally, once we've got those 2 points resolved, then what are the reforms that I would suggest? How can we devise a system that synthesises our past, our present and our future, and is a system that is creative, dynamic, flexible, and that's not static. And I'm going to make some suggestions in my piece as to how we do that. So if we look at the first point in terms of why I think it's a priority, I think that there's a direct link with job creation. Now, when I spoke here last year, I talked about the opportunity that Ireland had to set itself up, or to set its sights on, grabbing a huge share of the international services market. And those markets and those jobs, which are already, companies like my own have already made headway in establishing here, I think are vital to the future of the Irish economy. Those jobs are about knowledge, they're about managing and creating knowledge, and I think, by definition, the new jobs that we will have in Ireland going forward must be knowledge-based jobs. And therefore, companies like my own are looking for a steady pipeline of graduates who are equipped to soak up those jobs and to take on those new challenges. So there's a very, very direct link. If I look at HP, we have 4,500 employees in this country currently. And I am tremendously proud of those employees and what they've delivered for HP, both locally and internationally, as a result of the work that they've done for the company. But behind the scenes, what you mightn't be aware of is that the fact that we actually have that capability here in Ireland makes a very compelling case for me to go back into the HP family and actually build a business case to locate and base more jobs here in Ireland. And I have that capability here, I have that educated workforce, and that's a very, very compelling case I can make back to the corporation. So as a company, if we can innovate in Ireland, if we can incubate ideas in Ireland, and if we can globalise those ideas from Ireland, then we will be locating more jobs here as we go forward. You can absolutely rest assured of that. And it's not, of course, the case that all future jobs or all of the future jobs that are created in Ireland, as I'm sure we'll hear this evening, will come from multinationals like HP. But I think to get the economy back on track, to create jobs in the numbers that we really need going forward, companies like HP are a vital part of that. And that investment will come to Ireland if we have a workforce here that can deliver globally for us to the highest possible standards. So for me, it's a no-brainer. There's a direct link between a prioritised education system and job creation. So having decided that, I suppose I stood back and asked myself as a parent, well, what would I look for from my own children who are in primary and second level currently? And I guess, you know, again, there's a sort of a tension between, am I preparing a child for life, or am I preparing them for a job when they come out of school? And it's an equation, I think, which is very, very finely balanced. But the piece I'm going to cover this afternoon is going to talk about more about the latter, which is the preparation for coming out of school. But I did want to comment on the former for a second, which was the area of the preparation for life. One of the most important parts, I think, of the Irish school system currently is faith development. And I think it's probably not fashionable, or probably not a fashionable thing to say, but I think it's a critical part of the cycle because you're forming the value set. You're creating the sense of purpose, and you're building the life skills that are needed for the children when they come out of the system. And it has been my experience in business all over the world that values make a huge difference in business, and still do, and are still very important. So I think we need to build and make sure that that's an intrinsic part of the system going forward. But when you talk about, I suppose, the skills for job creation, if I was to say that, and I know the chair, so Don Thornhill talked about this extensively at last year's Glenties, and I'm not going to go into a lot of statistics for you, but my comment would be a summary statement would be, we're not as good as we think we are. And that's how I would summarise it. I think that the world has changed, the nature of business has changed, and it's not so much now about what you know or how much you know in business. It's how you use that information and how you put that to good use to get a competitive advantage in the market. And I think that means that children in school, and even I see it in my own children, they need to develop new competencies. They need to develop new ways. They have to learn new ways of how to learn, because I think they have to be different going forward into the future. The way they look at problems, the way they reason, rationalise problems, and work through that. And I can see firsthand that there certainly isn't the focus that there should be on those skills, because those are the skills that are vital skills when they come out into the workforce and actually go working in the global world. So I think there are certainly changes to be made within the system, and I think the system, so there's no question in my mind there are changes in terms of the philosophy of how we teach and how we educate. And then I suppose it comes down to the nitty-gritty, the sort of the immortal question of, like, so what would you do? Well, this is what I would do at second level. These are the changes I would make. I wouldn't overhaul the system. I think the core of the system is very strong. I think a lot of the ingredients are there. But I would evolve the system. Nor would I suggest for a second that the system needs to change as radically as society changes. I don't think there's a need for that. I think the system should shadow changes that have been made in society, but needs to be dynamic as well. So I would tackle my change agenda on three fronts: a modern curriculum, a modern learning environment, and the best teaching fraternity delivering those skills, profession teaching those skills to our children. From a curriculum perspective, the changes I would make, I'd probably sum them up as follows. I would have much more emphasis on maths and science. I think the bonus points for maths is a no-brainer. I think that's a given. It's going to happen. And I would make science compulsory at second level all the way through the system. And I would update the science syllabus. I think it's not as up-to-date as it should be, reflecting modern life. I've talked about the need for children coming out and going and competing and winning in the global stage. I would insist that every child leaving secondary school within the next 2 years has fluency in at least 2 international languages, because I see more and more the employees that we have based in this country are supporting international customers, and those people that have those skills can move a lot faster than those who have to develop them. And the second thing I would say on languages is that I would set a target for Irish second level schools that every school, again, within the next 2 years, offers an Asian language option to its pupils, which I think is a statement of intent by this country that says we have an Asia strategy and we're actually weaving it into the educational system. Now, that doesn't mean that every school needs to have a teacher who can teach those languages. We can use the technology to actually get that done. So that's what I would recommend there. I would deliver the current, from a curriculum perspective, I would deliver the curriculum as a continuous process. I would personally park the junior cert. I would look at extending a 5 to 6 to maybe 6 years in the cycle. And I would look at making much better use of the transition year, which I think is a platform that is not exploited to its maximum as it currently stands. To me, that is the opportunity to get children involved with business, entrepreneurial skills, and to lay the foundations that when they come out of school, they might want to go and work in a HP, they might want to go to a third level institution, but they might want to set up their own business. And we want to get that energy and appetite to do that in at that stage. And last, and certainly not least, I would evaluate the way we evaluate in the workplace, which is on a constant basis. It's not on the basis of one big exam. And I would revise the point system for going into universities and make them much more lateral and focusing on other competencies other than the ability to learn. So there are some of the changes I'd suggest at the curriculum level. From a learning environment level, I think it's going to be a key ingredient of the future learning of children in schools. I would define standards for virtual learning environment in Irish schools. They don't exist today, and they're a fundamental cornerstone of putting any infrastructure, technology or anything else into a school. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is I would connect every single school in this country with 100 megabits, not the 78 that Minister Ryan committed last year. I would equip every school. The next thing I would do is I would make sure that every 5th and 6th year pupil by 2012 has a laptop. Okay? First of all, it's probably cheaper than a set of books, and it's also lighter than a set of books at this stage as well. So there's a number of other side benefits of it, but I would make sure that they have a laptop, and I would set that target. And last but not least, I think it's commendable, Minister, that we have committed funding to ICT in schools, and I know there's money being spent. I think that's very, very commendable. What I would say is that I think we need to future-proof the money we're putting into the system currently. And how you future-proof it is you set standards and you also aggregate your demand. So my point on that would be that I think we could be getting better value for what we're putting into the system right now. I think it's great we're spending the money, and it's great that that commitment is being delivered on. I think there's ways of getting better value, and again, I would look closely at that. And last and certainly not least, my third approach to reform would be the teaching profession. I think it's one of the great teachers make great pupils. Excellent teachers produce excellent students. We've all been there, we know that, and we all remember the best teachers we had in schools. They know how to get the best out of you, how you're going to fulfil your potential. Teacher training and development, absolutely key. I saw the commentary in this morning's paper about the induction training. I think that's fantastic. I think we need more teacher training and more development there. I think also, in this country, we need much tighter links between the teaching profession and industry. I think companies like HP and other countries have programmes where we bring teachers in, we get them up to speed on the latest technology, etc., and really get them up to date with the skills. So investing in skills in conjunction with industry, putting funding into that is absolutely key. I would also open up the question, it may or may not be, it has to be looked at, is whether we should be looking at paying schools or teachers for performance. I think we should be driving results, and the teachers that are there that are getting the best results and getting the best out of the pupils and doing the great job, I think they should be rewarded and rewarded well for it. At least that would be my input. So my proposition on reform would be a modern curriculum, a modern learning environment, and a really ultra-modern teaching profession. So in closing the comments that I have to make, I think the Minister here, is in a fantastic position. I think she can define and evangelise a vision for the Irish second-level education system, which puts us back into the world stage, which she can lead the charge in messaging that education is not, it's an investment and it's not a cost. It's a necessity and it's not a luxury. And I think the great thing about the time we're living in right now is you have a combination of a sector in education that I think is open and wants to be changed and reformed and updated, coupled with industry, myself, lots of peers that I have, who are keen, who are champing at the bit to get working with government and making sure we're putting in the yards at this stage and revising and improving the system. So my closing comment would be the following. Minister, I think we should use education to define this nation. I think we should set about that task with open minds. I think we should set about that task with a sense of urgency. I think it's absolutely vital that we take it now. I think it's important that we do not in any sense or in any shape or form postpone that challenge. Because if we do that, our children will not thank us for it. So my one message is we do need to reform the system, we do need to innovate it, and we need to act now. Thank you.